It's 2016, I'm bored out of my mind in college, but what else is new? I'm playing one of my favorite anime games of all time, J-Star's Victory Versus, and I notice someone who I haven't played as before and who I don't recognize. Someone with pink hair, glasses, and a very annoyed expression on his face. No, it wasn't me. It was the boy known as Saiki Kusuo. Seriously, I had never heard of this guy before, never seen him, no one ever said his name to me, nothing. But overall, I enjoyed playing with him. Please don't make that dirty. I enjoyed playing the video game with him. Let's not make that weird. But turns out, I wasn't the only one. He was a pretty popular character in Japan, despite being relatively unknown, had his own manga, and was getting his own anime series later that year, so I got excited. There was already a Flash animation special, which was kinda weird, wasn't really used to the movements or the voices or anything, but still not bad. So what could this anime do? Would I enjoy it? Well, obviously I did, but would I say it's underrated? Well, that's what we're here to talk about. So to start off, Saiki K's premise is actually pretty easy to understand. A boy named Saiki in high school has psychic powers, and he tries to hide them from the world. But unlike everybody else who would do it for safety or, well, mainly just safety, Saiki does it because he's annoyed. He doesn't want people bothering him with his powers. He's very cold and standoffish. He's not the friendliest person, and his psychic powers ruin his life, like stopping him from eating curry. Yeah, I know, we're into some really deep stuff. But it works for the comedy because Saiki is surrounded by the craziest people that you could ever be surrounded by. First of all, his parents, who are probably some of the most underrated characters in the whole show. His mom and dad are the most lovey-dovey couple. It's actually kind of hilarious. Normally I hate couples like that, especially in real life, but somehow these two just make it work. These two are the most sickeningly adorable people of all time, and I live for them. But, like most people his age, Saiki has to go to school. Shocker, I know. He goes to school with a whole different variety of people, notably Nendo, who considers himself to be Saiki's best friend, even though Saiki wants nothing to do with him. He's not the brightest, he's one of the dumbest people I've ever seen in anime history, but he's also one of the friendliest people in the whole show, which definitely redeems him in the eyes of a lot of fans. Then there's Kaido, the Chunibyo, who believes he's the only person who can fight against some organization called Dark Reunion, and he's the Jet Black Wings. It's typical Chunibyo stuff, but something about the way Kaido does it and how pathetic he seems throughout the rest of the series makes it work. Not to mention, he actually has a lot of moments where he's brave and stands up for people. They did a good job with Kaido. Then there's Teruhashi, the most popular girl in school. She seems super nice, but she's actually incredibly stuck up, and she doesn't understand why Saiki doesn't fall for her like the rest of the school and the rest of the world does too. She has a lot of funny moments trying to get Saiki to notice her, but she's also in a lot of the episodes. Just keep that in mind for later. Like I said, she's in a lot, for better and for worse. There's also Yumahara, the lovesick girl, Reita, another psychic who actually knows about Saiki's powers, Hyro, the class president, Mera, the poor girl who's one of the most underrated characters in the whole show. There's just a plethora of other characters, and we're gonna talk about that because that's both a good and a bad thing of the series. Please, just hear me out. I'm not trying to crap on the show. I love the show, but it's my video, so let's get into it. One of the things Saiki K does really well is its balance. Saiki is a relatively normal character in a world full of bizarre, crazy people. But the show does a good job of every now and then making him the bizarre one, making him the one who stands out, which is ironically what he's trying to avoid. There are several times when he'll avoid making the easy decision and end up making a completely ridiculous situation just to avoid talking to people. Hey, I feel that. I understand that. So he makes a lot of smart decisions, but he also makes a lot of dumb ones, which to me kind of humanizes him. He's human. He's supposed to make mistakes like that. Not to mention, all the episodes are about 5-minute shorts. There's 5-minute shorts per episode, and that's about it. Heck, back when they were first releasing this show, Funimation would only release one 5-minute snippet a day, Monday through Friday, and then I want to say Sunday, they would just show the whole episode. It was unique. It was a different way of doing it, but I also think it might have had something to do with why the show wasn't well known at first. Like people just weren't into that format at first. Each episode, Saiki will basically try to find a way to avoid spending time with his so-called friends, be it avoiding staying after class and helping them with something, or avoiding helping a little girl with a lost puppy or something like that. He does this because he fears that if his powers are discovered, he won't be able to live a normal life, which is basically his goal throughout the series. And frankly, once again, I feel that. I can definitely understand that. The situations themselves aren't too different from what you'd see in a regular gag anime. Friends don't understand that one person wants to be left alone, the one person wants to be left alone, but once he hangs out with them, he realizes that they're not so bad. And they did a good job of that. They did a really good job of balancing the characters being annoying and kind of pushy at times, but also them being like actual human and having different developments and actually showing that they are indeed friends. The first season in particular, I think, did a fantastic job of doing this. There were a lot of episodes where Saiki would be miserable at the end because he'd be stuck hanging out with the people he was trying to avoid. But there were also several episodes where Saiki would help out his friend and do his best, listen to their problems, and use his powers without them knowing to help them out in their daily situations, some being more comical and some being a little more serious. But on the other hand, it works the other way too. There were a lot of episodes where Saiki would be trying to get something done, and his friends would help him out, or at least would do their best to help him out, and he would kind of have to help them help him out. It's a nice dynamic. I really dig it. The first season really knew what it was doing. There are a lot of heartwarming moments in the series, but there are also a lot of hilarious moments. Almost every single joke hits it out of the park. There are a lot of references to other anime, Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Kaido and Nendo's dynamic in particular being hilarious, as they both more or less compete for the role of Saiki's best friend / sidekick. They do a lot of interesting stuff with it, and I'm really glad that these two characters in particular got as much shine as they did. Some of my favorite running jokes in the series are jokes like Yumahara trying to get closer to Saiki, but Saiki completely dodging her, and her romantic fantasies at every turn. The gang having a plan of some kind and about to put it into plan, but all of a sudden Nendo just completely ruins it. There was a lot of jokes that really worked well for me, especially Kaido and his powers, or lack thereof. And every time you hear the song in the background, Judgment Knights of Thunder, it always got a kick out of me. Seriously, that was my ringtone for a good several months. Sadly, like most gag anime, there are some jokes that don't hit. Nothing really inherently wrong with these jokes, but just some of them don't really work. Like, it's very hard to explain. Some jokes, like the 100th episode, a lot of the jokes in that episode got really old really fast. There are a lot of jokes that just kind of, I don't cringe when I listen to them, but there are a few that I kind of scratch my head at, like I don't know what they're going for. And maybe that's a problem with the translation or something along those lines, but they're few and far between. When you laugh as much as I do in this show, and as much as other people do, you can afford a few slip-ups. Another problem with this series overall is not necessarily the characters, but the emphasis of certain characters. I talked about Season 1 having a good mix of a variety of characters, but sadly, Season 2 doesn't really have that. They introduce a lot of new characters like Ayura, a soothsayer who has a huge crush on Saiki, Sato, the normal guy, who is... I don't know how they made him as hilarious as they did, but he was a fantastic addition. But sadly, he doesn't appear in that many episodes. Not that I need him to be a focal point or anything, but it would have been nice to see just a little bit more of him. Hyro doesn't get that much screen time in Season 2. In fact, one of the biggest problems I have in Season 2 is Teruhashi. Now hold on, relax. I'm not saying Teruhashi is a horrible character, because I wouldn't go that far. I'm not saying she's a bad character, I wouldn't go that far either. But we got so much of her in season 2. It felt like this show really wanted to become a romance so much, and it got really annoying. Because the first season, she was in a handful amount of episodes, one of the mainer characters. She got her own spotlight in her own episode, she was in the background of some episodes, it worked. But by season 2, they really weren't messing around. This girl was in almost every single episode. And it's fine, she's a good character and everything, but some of the stuff with her fell really, really flat. And not to mention, if you have all of these characters, you can split up the episodes. We don't need a whole season dedicated to this girl, but we get what we get. Another problem with season 2 in particular was probably the pacing. One of the characters known as Saiki, who was a rich character, he started off at the end of season 1. He might as well have just been introduced at season 2. He was very snobby, arrogant, and kind of started off as an antagonist to Saiki and his friends. But as the series progresses, he becomes more and more friendly with them, and all of a sudden there's an episode where he actually wants to leave the school and leave everybody. But they all convince him to stay, happy ending, it's a good episode. Only for the very next episode to have him at odds with everybody and he nearly ruins the school play. Yeah, that's another thing. The school play is the worst episode of the series, by far. Maybe part of the reason I didn't enjoy season 2 as much was the dub. The dub itself was hilarious, and when you have a series that moves as fast as Saiki K does, it helps to understand it. So when they took away the dub or they just didn't get the licensing for it, maybe that had something to do with it. So if it seems like I'm being a little harsh on it, I don't apologize or anything, but that might have something to do with it. Contrary to popular belief, there is kind of some pretty clever jokes and meaning behind the series and just its plot. For example, one of the reasons everybody's hairstyle is so weird is because of Saiki. One of the reasons that people recover from injuries so fast is because of Saiki and his powers. But the reason nobody seems to age is also because of Saiki. There's a giant volcano that he doesn't seem to be able to fix, and every time he fails, he resets the Earth, so everybody remains the age as they are for a year. Finally, at the end of the series, he's able to fix it and everybody's able to move on with their lives, which is both clever and actually pretty hilarious when you start to think about it. I enjoyed that. But a lot of people talk about the ending, which is what's pretty different from what I was expecting, if I'm being honest. Saiki stops the volcano, everybody moves on with their lives, he finds a way to seal his powers, and he lives a relatively normal life for about 5 minutes or so. Oh, his powers come back a little bit, and in fact they even come back stronger than ever when they're finally back. He's not exactly happy about it, but he doesn't have time to mope too much because there's a meteor headed for the Earth. He's the only one who can do something about it, and it's at that point when he hears everybody crying out for help and just learning to appreciate each other before it could potentially be the end that he actually has grown to accept a chaotic life and his psychic powers before he flies off to destroy the meteor. It's a nice ending, and it's nice that it came full circle for Saiki and his character development. But it also has a lot of people asking, what's next? Is there more? Are they going to make more episodes? What happened to Saiki and the meteor? Well, duh, he probably already destroyed it. I really don't get why people are so hung up on that he might have failed. We saw him do it when he was 4, whatever. But I think that's it for Saiki K. I don't think they need to do any more. I don't think in fact, the author himself said he doesn't want to do anymore. He wants to move on, he wants to do other stuff, and I respect that. I don't think that right now we need more Saiki K. Down the line, sure, I would love it, but I don't want anime original stuff. I wouldn't want them to do stuff without the author's help, because we've seen anime original stuff and nobody ever seems happy about it. So for now, I'm willing to let Saiki K go. Overall, even with my complaints, Saiki K is a very enjoyable series. I really hope you guys give it a shot. It's not perfect. I don't think I'd say it's underrated at all. I think it's a very good series. I don't know if I would ever put it in the realm of This is one of the best of all time, but I've made a lot of great friends watching this show, a lot of good laughs, discovered some great voice acting talent. It's a great show. Problems with some pacing and some jokes and even a couple of characters aside, it's a great ride from start to finish. I recommend the whole series. Just keep in mind though, unless you ship Saiki with coffee jelly or the normal boy, you are wrong. Just any other ship is just completely wrong in this show. I'll make the rules, I'm just informing you. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Was Saiki underrated, overrated? What would you have liked to have seen that wasn't just purely romance-based? And what characters would you like to have seen more from that didn't get the spotlight they deserved? Let me know. This has been Foster of the Anime Egotist saying, if you disagree, aibo, ramen kuikoze. Wait, if he's a psychic and can hear everything, does that mean he can hear his friends and his parents' bone? Oh, God! This dude needs therapy more than I do. Well, okay, yeah, it's pretty close.
I'm Android17, and also Saiki's dad, and you're watching Anime Egotists.